What up, YouTube? It's your boy Charles Enoch. You already know we back with another Invest in Myself episode. Run the intro. So last week, I went over how to pay your credit card off without paying any interest, because I know it's the holiday season and everybody's gonna be spending some money. And this is including me. I gotta hit up the Black Friday sales, the Cyber Monday. I'm trying to get my Christmas shopping out of the way because I hate doing last minute Christmas shopping. It really does frustrate me. So I got some questions about the previous week, and I know not a lot of people are gonna have a high limit credit card where they can do all their holiday shopping. They may have credit cards with lower limits and they're going to be using multiple credit cards. And they want to know, can they use this same method using multiple credit cards and pay them off with no interest? And we're going to talk about this and we're going to answer that question. But before I get started, you already know your boy got to do the YouTube thing. So your boy's getting close to getting monetized. So I'm going to ask you guys, help a brother out. If you haven't done so yet, go ahead, smash that like button for me. And if you're new to the channel or you just haven't done so yet, hit the subscribe button for me and leave a comment down below telling me you're a new subscriber. And also, if you enjoy my content, please think about donating to my Patreon page. I will have the link down below in the description page. And I really do appreciate anybody that takes the time to do so, because it really helps me reach a higher audience base. So to reiterate, for the people that have not seen my previous video, we want to always remember that income pays credit and credit is going to pay our expenses. So our credit card is a revolving line of credit, which pretty much means that once we put the money in, we pay off the credit card, we can instantly use that same money, turn around and spend it. So a brief example, if your credit card had a $3,000 debt on it and you have $3,000 in the bank, you can get your $3,000 out and pay off the credit card. Once that credit card is paid off, that $3,000, you can start swiping your credit card and using that $3,000. So if we pretty much think about it, you actually transferred $3,000 from your checking account onto your credit card. So if we have consistent positive cash flow, we're able to transfer all of our money onto the credit card or even multiple credit cards, pay them off before the due date, which will eliminate any interest. And then you're going to use your multiple cards to pay your expenses. Now, again, since we have positive cash flow, meaning that the income that's coming into our pocket is more than our expenses, that means when you pay off all your expenses on the multiple credit cards, there's still going to be some money left on the credit card. This is the money that is slowly paying off your multiple credit cards. So again, positive cash flow is key to this strategy. Now, my advice, when you're doing multiple credit cards, you want to try to get your credit cards to have the same due date. So it's almost like consolidating and making it seem like you're doing this and you're paying off one card, because you're going to have to pay off all the multiple cards at the same time. So I know that explanation I just gave may be a little complicated, but it's really not. So I have the whiteboard in the back, and you know we're going to get down to business to figure this thing out. And by the way, it's going to be the same equation, but we're just going to have multiple credit cards because I want to try to make this as easy as possible. So let's go. All right, so I'm on the whiteboard. So let's get down to business. If you tuned in last week, this is going to be the same equation, the same scenario, but the credit cards are going to be structured a little different here. So let's say that we're going to have a couple, their income is going to be $8,500. Their expenses are $8,000. Part of the $8,000 expense is rent, which is going to be $2,500. Their cash flow is going to be $500. And instead of one credit card, they're going to have 3 credit cards that they have, and they're trying not to pay any type of interest on the credit card. So credit card 1 has $2,000 on there. The minimum payment's $100 per month that they would have to put on there. Credit card 2 is $2,000 as well. minimum payment, we're going to say $100 per month that they would have to pay minimum. And then credit card 3 is another $2,000 with the minimum payment of $50 per month that they would have to pay. Now we're going to say the interest rate on all 3 of these credit cards are 25%. So they're looking not to pay this 25% interest rate. All right, so we're on the other side of the board. So we're going to break this down and see how they can pay off all 3 of these credit cards without paying any interest. So the first thing, because I get a lot of questions about due dates, so we're just going to put this as an example here. Let's say that this couple, they called the bank and they got their due dates for all their cards. Let's say on the 30th of every month is when the credit cards are due. So we're going to use a due date of the 30th of every single month. Now, the income, let's say that they get paid bi-weekly every 2 weeks for their income. Credit cards due on the 30th, pretty much the end of the month. So the first thing that this individual is going to do, no matter when you get your income, you're going to put it immediately on the credit card or credit cards. We are trying to pay off the credit cards in that month before the due date so it does not accrue any interest. So we're going to look at step 1. We're going to take $6,000 of the $8,500 of income they get in the month. We're going to take $6,000. Whenever we get the $6,000, and if bi-weekly, if you get paid, and let's say you get $4,000, you're going to be putting it immediately on the cards. And then once you get $6,000, they should get paid off. So it's going to look something like this. The income, $6,000, put it on credit card 1 is paid off. Credit card 2 is paid off. Credit card 3 is paid off. All 3 of them are paid off. So when you pay all of them off, what this does is the minimum payment per those cards, that is not part of your expenses anymore. Those are gone. So it increases our cash flow by $250, $100, $150, and decreases our expenses by $250. So once we do that and we avoided the interest, the next step is we're going to use our remainder income to pay our rent. So the rent's $2,500, income $2,500. We're going to pay the rent, keep the roof over our head. Now our remainder expenses are $5,250. So what are we going to do to pay those expenses? Remember, income pays credit, credit pays expenses. So we're going to use our credit cards. We have multiple credit cards. We are going to use credit cards 1, 2, and 3. We have to use them because we got $5,250, right? So we're going to use all those credit cards, and what's going to be left on one of the credit cards is $750. So if we're looking at the end of January, our debt is $5,250. The amount that we paid is $750. And this would be on one credit card, right? Because we have 3 credit cards. So one credit card would have an available balance of $750. The other credit cards, there's no available balance. But what happened was, since we paid it in full, and then after we paid it in full, we used it, that means that the interest did not accrue on the credit card. We avoided interest and we paid $750 on one of the credit cards. All right, so we're on the month of February. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to see what our debt was at the end of January here. So our debt is $5,250. So the first thing what we're going to do is we're going to put our income onto the credit cards, right? So remember, we're trying to pay off the credit cards before the due date. The due date on these cards are at the end of the month here. So we're going to use $5,250 of our income to pay off all 3 of our credit cards. So credit card 1 has $2,000. We're going to pay that off. Credit card 2 has $2,000. We're going to pay that off. Credit card 3 has $1,250. We're going to pay that off. Now, what that does, remember, is going to increase our cash flow because we don't have any minimum payment on the credit card. And then it's going to decrease our expenses by $250. Now, we're going to go to our next step. We're going to use our remainder income, which would be $3,250. We're going to first pay our rent, $2,500. And then the remainder of this money, we're going to put it onto our expenses of the $5,250. This will leave us with an amount of $4,500 we need to pay for expenses. Now, how we're going to do that? Income pays credit, credit pays expenses. So we're going to use our credit cards. Remember, they're back up to $6,000 because we've paid them in full, which has avoided the interest. Now, our expenses are $4,500. We're going to have to use our credit cards. And it looks like we're going to have to use all three again, right? So credit card 1, $2,000, credit card 2, $2,000, and only $500 from credit card 3. So what's going to happen is credit card 1 and 2, they're going to be back maxed out. Credit card 3 is going to have a balance of $1,500 that we have paid on it. So it's close to getting paid off. So at the end of February, what we're looking at is a debt of $4,500. The amount that we pay off is $1,500, and we have paid that onto credit card 3. And again, interest is 0 because we're paying the credit cards off in full before the due date. All right, so on the month of March, so the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to see what our debt is at the end of February. So our debt is $4,500. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put $4,500 on all three of our credit cards to pay that off in full. When we pay the credit card off in full for the month, that means that it's 0 interest that accrued here. So step 1, $4,500. Remember, the due date on our credit cards are at the end of the month on the 30th here. So whenever we get our $4,500 before the end of the month, we're putting $2,000 on credit card 1, $2,000 on credit card 2, and $500 on credit card 3 to pay all three of them off. Again, what that's going to do is increase our cash flow $250 and decrease our expenses $250. And then the next step of what we're going to do, we're going to take our remainder income. Remember, our income's $8,500. We're going to first pay our rent, $2,500. The remainder amount, we're going to put that onto our expenses, and we're going to see that we still owe $3,750 in expenses. So the next step, we're going to use our credit cards to pay the remainder of our expenses. Now, since our expenses are $3,750, we only need to use 2 cards. We're going to use credit card 1 and 2. That means 3 is paid off. We don't need to even use 3 anymore, right? So when we do that, we see that there's a remainder amount of $2,250, meaning that credit card 3 is paid off and credit card 2 has $250 that we have paid on there. So if we're looking at it in a total overall view, in March, our debt is $3,750. The amount that we've paid on all the credit cards is $2,250. Credit card 3 is paid in full. We can kind of throw that over there because we don't even have to worry about it no more. All right, so we're on the month of April. So the first thing we got to do is see what our debt was at the end of March. So our debt on March was $3,750. And we know that we want to pay off our credit cards before the end of the month. Remember, the due date is the 30th of every month. And if we pay that off, 0% interest accrues. So the first thing we're going to do is whenever I get my income, the first thing I'm going to do is take $3,750 of my income and pay off credit card 1, put $2,000 on it, pay it off in full. Credit card number 2, $1,750 paid off in full. Remember, credit card 3 is already paid off. We don't need to do nothing with it. Again, this is going to increase our cash flow by $250 and decrease our expenses by $250 because there's no minimum payments on these cards anymore, right? So the remainder income, which is going to be $4,750, we're going to first put that on the rent, pay our rent $250 or $2,500, and then our expenses, we're going to put that remainder amount, the difference from that, we're going to put it onto our expenses, and it's going to leave us with $3,000 left on our expenses. Now, how are we going to pay that? Income pays credit, credit pays expenses. You got it. So we're going to take our credit cards, our two credit cards, credit card number one, $2,000, charge it up, boom. Credit card number two, we're going to just take $1,000 out of there, right? And then we're going to be left with $3,000. So that means that credit card three is paid off. Credit card number two, we paid off $1,000 on credit card number two. So let's look at an overall scope of what we're on here. So at the end of April, we have a debt of $3,000. The amount that we've paid off total is $3,000. And the interest that has accrued is a big fat zero because we're paying that thing off in full every month before the due date. Due date is the 30th. All right, we're in my favorite month. We in the month of May. That's my birthday month. Now, what we need to do is we got to look at the previous month, at the end of the previous month, to see what our debt was. So for April, our debt was $3,000. Like we already know, it's probably drilled in your head, but we're about to drill it a little further. We are wanting to pay off all our credit cards before that due date. Remember, the due date is the 30th here. So whenever we get $3,000, we're going to take $3,000 of our income. We're going to first pay off credit card one, which is $2,000. Then we're going to pay off credit card two, which is $1,000. Now what that's going to do is it's going to free up our cash flow by $250. It's going to decrease our expenses by $250. So the next step, we're going to take the remainder of our income, which is $5,500. We're going to first pay our rent, which is $2,500. Keep the roof over your head, right? And then we're going to pay some of our expenses, whatever that difference is, right? So we're going to put that on there. We're going to see that we still owe $2,250 in expenses. How are we going to pay it? We're going to use our credit cards. So we got $6,000 total in all three of our credit cards. We're going to use credit card one and some of credit card two to pay our expenses. So once we do that, we see that we have a remainder balance of $3,750. That means credit card three it's been paid off. Credit card three has been paid off. Credit card two, we are slowly getting that thing paid off. We only have $250 left before we pay off credit card two. So that's the balance. So the balance on credit card one is $2,000. The balance on credit card two is $225. So let's look at the overall scope of things. At the end of May, our debt is $2,250. The amount that we paid on it is $3,750 and a big fat zero for interest since we are paying this off before the due date on our credit cards. All right, so we in the month of June. We about to get these credit cards paid off soon, right? All right, so we got to look at the previous month, what our debt was. So in the month of May, our debt was $2,250. So we're going to use our income whenever we get it in, as long as it's before the 30th, the due date of our credit cards. Whenever we get $2,250, we're going to put $2,000 on credit card number one, pay it off in full, avoid the interest. Credit card number two, we're going to put $250 on that, avoid the interest. That's going to increase our cash flow by $250. Our expenses are going to be decreased by $250. So our next step, use our remainder income, $6,250. Let's put that on rent first, get that thing paid off. Expenses, we're going to use whatever that difference is. We're going to put it onto the expenses. And then we see we have a remainder amount of $1,500 for expenses. How are we going to pay it off? You guessed it. We're going to use our credit card. We only need one credit card here. So we're going to use credit card number one, pay $1,500 in expenses on credit card number one. We see that we have $4,500 that we've paid off in that month. So overall, credit card number 3, credit card number 2 is paid off. The balance on credit card number 1 is $1,500. So let's look at the end of June. Our debt's $1,500. Amount that we paid off, $4,500. In the interest, big fat zero, since we are paying our credit cards off in full before the due date of the 30th of every month. All right, time flies in the month of July. So let's see what our debt is in the month of June, which our debt was $1,500. So we need $1,500 to pay off credit card number 1. So whenever we get it throughout the month, once we get it, we put $1,500 onto our credit card. This pays that thing off in full, avoids the interest, right? And then it increases our cash flow $250. It decreases the expenses $250. We already know this. We're going to take our remainder income. We're going to first pay our rent, $2,500, keep the roof over your head. And then the remainder amount, we're going to tack that onto the expenses of $5,250. We see the difference is going to be $750. Now, how are we going to pay the expenses? Income pays credit, credit pays expenses, right? So we're going to use our credit card number 1, put $750 on there, right? And we see that we've paid off $5,250. That means $750 is left on credit card number 1. Credit card 3 is paid off. Credit card 2 is paid off. So let's look at the overall scope of things. So the month of July, debt is $750 on credit card number 1 only. Amount paid $5,250. And interest accrued, big fat zero. Because again, we are paying our credit card off before the 30th of every month. All right, we in our last month of August. Let's finish out strong. So the first thing we need to know is, what was our debt at the end of July? So our debt was $750. So whenever we get $750 of our income, we're going to put that onto credit card number 1 and pay that thing off in full. Increases cash flow $250. Decreases expenses $250. We're going to use the remainder of our income, $7,750, to first pay the rent and then pay the expenses. Wow, we add these up. Compared to that, it totals it out to zero. So we have $0 in expenses. We used our own cash income to pay all of our expenses, which means next step, our credit card, all our credit cards, they are paid in full. We have an available balance of $6,000. 6,000 on 0 equals 6,000. So that means we are paid off in full. We did not accrue any interest throughout these 8 months. So that 25% interest, it doesn't even matter, right? So the overall August, 0 debt, amount paid 6,000, interest 0 for those 8 months. Now again, hopefully this was helpful to you guys that have multiple credit cards and are paying multiple credit cards when you're spending during the holiday season. How am I able to pay all of this off without paying 0% interest? Now again, this is a perfect scenario. A lot of times you're going to pay some sort of interest, but if you're doing this method, it is going to reduce it tremendously. Now again, the saying is income pays credit, credit pays your expenses. Now if you like this video, definitely leave a comment. Tell me what you liked about it. If you disliked the video, definitely leave a comment as well too. Remember to smash that like button for me. And if you're new to the channel or just haven't done so yet, definitely hit that subscribe button for me. And if you like my content, please definitely think about, and if you enjoy my content, please think about donating to my Patreon page. It's just $2 a month and it's greatly appreciated. So like always, you guys have a good weekend. Hopefully your Thanksgiving was as wonderful as mine. Peace out.